Hey everyone, it's Peter Kerr from Daydream Nation, and I've got Bicyclelegs back to the channel. How are you?
I'm doing well, thanks, Peter. Always a pleasure to be on Daydream Nation.
Fantastic to have you on the show. We are going to do a show about Blue Oyster Cult, and the subject of this show is the much reviled album Blue Oyster Cult Club Ninja. So there's the album. It's in defense of, from my perspective. I don't know which side of the ledger or fence that you sit, Bicyclelegs. We will find out. We won't reveal that straight up, but yeah, we'll do a deep dive on the album, the performances, the songs, and just for that matter, just talk all things Blue Oyster Cult. So I'll start off by asking you, Daniel, what was your first experience with Blue Oyster Cult?
Well, I mean, obviously, as a kid, I knew Don't Fear the Reaper. Who didn't? I mean, that song was a standard on classic rock radio. Um, I started collecting Blue Oyster Cult about 4 or 5 years ago, and I started with the early stuff. Actually, funnily enough, the first album of theirs I got was Mirrors, which is not considered to be an absolute classic of theirs either. Considered to be a bit on the light side compared with some of their other stuff and that sort of thing. But I quite enjoyed it. I think I also, at the same time, I got Some Enchanted Evening, which is a pretty good live album. And from there, it made me want to try more. And I've got to admit, getting into the 70s stuff, I've really enjoyed a lot of that. And I've collected everything. Well, at the time we started talking about doing the show, I'd collected everything up to and including oh, my mind's gone completely blank. You're gonna have to do an edit here.
Yeah, I will.
Um
That's okay.
yeah, by the time we discussed doing this show, I'd collected everything up to and including Fire of Unknown Origin. And I really love that album. Since then, since we first started talking about doing this show, as people who've watched my channel and saw my most recent What's in Bicyclelegs Bag episode, I recently picked up the Revolution by Night as well, but I've only really had a chance to spin that one the once. So that was my experience coming into this. And when you asked me to do this show, it was interesting because I'd never heard this album. So I was coming
Great.
into it completely cold.
Fantastic. And that makes this show, in my eyes, even better because it's a fresh set of ears listening to this particular album. All right. Well, I'll hit you with a few quotations. The well renowned author Martin Popoff, I think you've heard of him, said, This album is the least attached to the BOC body of work, painfully constructed and baffling in its bad taste. Ouch.
Yeah.
Sandy Pearlman, the producer of this album, said Club Ninja was the worst record I was ever involved with in my life. And Joe Bouchard, who I interviewed, check out the interview on Rock Daydream Nation, said Club Ninja was the big catalyst for me leaving the group.
That Martin Popov quote that you mentioned when I was sort of doing my little bit of research for this show as well. But I also noticed that apparently in his Collector's Guide to Heavy Metal, he still gave it a 7 out of 10. So that's rather interesting. I saw that on the Wikipedia page. So yeah, it is a real head scratch. I think he's just that much of a fan of Blue Oyster Cult that even their bad stuff's a 7 out of 10.
There's a lot of heat about this album, and there's this very strong narrative since I've got into the YouTube world of commentary around this album of being bad news and being a complete stinker. So I'm always up for a challenge, and I've lived with this album for about a year. And yeah, I guess I'll give you my opinion, but yeah, I'll a little bit of a heads up. I'm going to be doing a little bit of a defense in regards to it. So the lineup of this album, you've got the three core members of Eric Bloom, lead vocals, rhythm guitar, Donald Buckdama Rosa, who's the lead vocals, lead guitar, keyboards, and the great Joe Bouchard on bass backing and lead vocals. And you've got these two other members of the band, Tommy Zivanchek on keyboards, organ, piano, and Jimmy Wilcox on backing vocals and percussion. This didn't really trouble the charts. It wasn't very commercial. Irrespective, it was on the Columbia. It was a major release, but it just didn't really sell that well at all. So, Bicyclelegs, why don't we get cracking and
Mm.
start doing a song by song analysis? The first song is a cover. It's White Flags, and it's written by Hugh and Gordon Leggett. Now, these guys were part of a band called Leggett that released an album in 1982 called Illuminations. I don't never heard of them, and apparently Sandy Pearlman, the producer, introduced the band to this song. So, what do you think of this song, White Flags?
When you asked me to do this album, I went and had a look at the album and the credits and all that sort of thing. And one of the first things I noticed was a lot of outside songs. Like I know that Blue Oyster Cult have, lyricists from outside the band assist them with a lot of their songwriting, but it's usually one or more of the members are writing the music and that sort of thing. Whereas this album has a lot of songs that are just sourced from completely outside the band. And when I saw that, I was like, oh, that's usually warning signs that this isn't going to be a great record. White Flags, though, I think gets the album off to a strong start. There's that very 80s drum sound. I mean, this was recorded in 1985, and I don't mind it on this song, but as the album goes along, that drum sound is going to get a little grating. Um, I like the contrast between sort of the hard rock chords and the chiming guitars. So you've got like two guitar parts playing at the same time. One is playing these sort of power chords, and then the other is these sort of clean chiming guitars. And I really like that about it. And then there's this sort of quiet section in the middle, which I think is really effective. The arrangement is great. They may not have written this song, but the arrangement they came up for it is really, really good. The synths on the song, very much of their time. But I like them in the context of this particular song. I think this one's energetic and tuneful and gets the album off to a really good start. I like this song a lot.
Yeah, thank you. I think this song's quite an unusual start to the album, and it's very much about getting jiggy with it. It's a song about sex. Hold me close, don't fear my body. The flesh is weak, in need of touching. Yeah, you're thinking, well, Club Ninja or Club Swingers? I don't know. And a lot of folk have sort of said that this album is loosely conceptual. So maybe at the end of it, we'll give our views on that. But yeah, a little bit of a below the belt type of subject matter. I love the keyboards on this album.
Mm.
And I love there's a real nifty organ break. I just wrote down the note as I was listening to. I listened to this album fairly intensively over the last couple of weeks, and that really stuck out to me. That I really love the organ work and that nice little organ break. And another thing is, I love the guitar work of Buck Dharma on this album. He does these little weaving guitar bits, even if it's a little more keyboard and less guitar, you can hear his mastery of the fretboard, and it's really nifty. I'm not sold if this is the most outstanding Blue Oyster Cult starter, but it's a little bit unusual, but I'll reserve my judgment. I think, yeah, it's not bad, but it's not the greatest start as far as I'm concerned to a Blue Oyster Cult album. Then we go to Dancing in the Ruins, which was written by Larry Gottlieb and Justin Scanlon. So what do you think of this song?
Yeah, I mean, it starts off in sort of like a double time before it settles into its tempo. Very radio friendly, this song is. But it's melodic and catchy. Uh, I don't find it like some radio friendly stuff can be very annoying. I don't find this annoying at all. I like the organ on this song, although I'm pretty sure that organ sound is from a synthesizer rather than from an actual organ. It just sounds like the sort of organ sound you'd get off a Yamaha DX7, which, was the keyboard of the time. Um, you know, this song sort of chugs along pleasantly, I think. There's a nice little instrumental middle eight, which I really like. We get a quieter atmosphere for verse three. That's always a nice little sort of trick in a song to have your third verse or something like that, just like completely change in atmosphere and that sort of thing. Yeah, it's commercial, this song, but I like it. Um, there's nothing flashy about it, but it's very effective. And I've been trying, maybe you can help me with this, Peter. It reminds me of someone, and I can't for the life of me think of who it reminds me of, but it definitely reminds me of somebody.
Yeah, Ghost. Yeah, if you're familiar with the band Ghost, seriously, they have cribbed this song, and I'll talk about that in a moment. This song is so tasty. I love it. It's got these tasty melodic rock hooks. It should have been a hit. And I love the vocals of Buck on this. They're so warm, inviting. He's got a great tone. And I love that rolling chord structure in the bridge. There's a lyric in it. It doesn't matter if we turn to dust, turn and turn we must. And seriously, I've got about 4 or 5 Ghost albums, and they have just stolen and cribbed that sort of line and that riff from Blue Oyster Cult. I don't know. Are you familiar with Ghost? Have you heard any of their songs?
Yeah,
It's just like Blue Oyster Cult meets
my
Foghat.
my son's really into Ghosts, so I will have to share this song with him and see if he sees the similarity as well.
Absolutely, he will. He'll just go, yeah, spot on. This got affected. There was a bit of a, I don't know the intimate details, but apparently there was a bit of a payola scandal affecting music radio and record companies in the early 80s, and CBS Columbia were caught up in it. So this single was severely affected and got limited radio airplay. So I think if this got the necessary radio airplay like their other songs had previously, it may have been a hit. I think it's just so tasty and hooky, and it's one of my favorite songs on the album.
Yeah, yeah, it's a good one.
Make rock, not war. Bit of a
All
stab
right.
at arena rock here. Fists in the air. What do you think of this song?
We are absolutely both feet in mid 80s hard rock cheese land here, as far as I'm concerned. The first time I listened to this song, I hated it. I just thought, this is just terrible. I still don't love it, but I think if you can avoid taking it too seriously, there is some dumb fun to be had with this song. Um, it's very cliched musically and lyrically. There's even like the sort of stereotypical mid 80s shreddy guitar solo. Not one of my favorite things that Buck Dahmer's ever done, but um there was definitely worse around in the mid 80s than this song. But this is definitely a couple of steps down from the first two songs in my humble opinion. Not one of the highlights of the album for me.
Do you think they're being satirical? Because are they deliberately doing a cheesy 80s song that you could hear in a Jerry Bruckheimer movie from the 80s? Are they being ironic? Because this band is super clever.
Yeah.
A lot of their lyrics and their music is super smart and challenges the listener. And I was thinking, wow, they cannot do something so obviously genre specific without them being a bit tongue in cheek and poking fun. And even the song title, where it says "Make Rock Not War," the gang vocals. I'm thinking, are they actually poking fun at the audience? Are they being super clever? So
Well,
that's the way I took this
yeah,
song.
it's an interesting way to look at it. I think it's worth noting they didn't write this song. It was written by some guy called Bob Halligan Jr., who writes
Absolutely,
another
but
song on this
taking
album.
taking the words and turning
Yeah,
it, spinning. Look, I know they've got outside lyricists, but I still think it's into their world. And
yeah.
in the way that Joe Bouchard describes it is that they used to get lots of outside writers sending lyrics in, and it'd be all on the table, and they'd go through it, and they'd sort of pick lyrics or a song that seemed to fit the project or what suited them at that particular time. And did they come across this and go, well, maybe we could make a bit of fun, maybe we could, turn this
Yeah.
around and poke a little bit of fun at something, a genre? Or are they being po-faced serious? I mean, the lyrics of this song is very in the sense of the Cold War and the Reagan era. As we wait for the world leaders to decide who will die first, so don't wait no more. You've got some very cheesy, let's make rock, not war. And then you've got lyrics like that are sort of pro, what was happening in the mid 80s about the Cold War and anti-nukes and, a fear factor of what was happening in respect to world events. So I don't know. There's two ways you could see it. Po-face
Yeah.
serious song, or are they just poking fun?
I don't think it's po-face serious, but at the same time, I came around to this song up to a point. You know, I think it's fun, but it's stupid fun, if you know what I mean. I don't think there's a lot of cleverness in this song. And even that sort of mid 80s, sort of Cold War, Reagan and all that sort of thing, quite cliched by 1985. So, you know, it's all right. It's all right, but it's definitely not one of my favorite songs on the album.
Yeah, yeah. Well, look, maybe it's a little bit of a misfire in regards to it, but I just think this band is so super clever. They wouldn't do something as dumb without them being slightly ironic.
Mm.
So anyway, all right. The next one is Perfect Water, and this was co-written by the great Jim Carroll. Big fan. If you're familiar, he's the author of the Basketball Diaries and a lot of great punk albums of the late 70s, early 80s. What do you think of this song?
Yeah, this is a much better song. I mean, it starts off with these sort of strummed guitar and burbling synths. Um, and the one of the things I put in my notes was at last we get a writing credit from the one of the band members because uh, Buck Dahmer gets a writing credit along with Jim Carroll. So yeah, I mean this is really good. This to me wouldn't sound out of place in one of those sort of late 70s to early 80s Blue Oyster Cult albums. To my sort of novice ears, I'm still, a bit of a neophyte when it comes to Blue Oyster Cult. This is the most Blue Oyster Cult sounding song on the album up to this point. Buck plays some tasty leads and he sings this song really well. It's still radio friendly, but it's a bit more adventurous. And the drum sound on this song isn't quite as obnoxious as it gets on some of the other songs. So yeah, up to this point, highlight of the album. So yeah.
It's a great song. It's got a macabre beauty about it. And I think lyrically, this song is about suicide because I think it uses the ocean as a metaphor, which I interpret around death or suicide. I love the melodies and the harmonies on this one, especially when it goes into the chorus, Perfect Water. It has a Don't Fear the Reaper breakout moment when Buck plays some tasty guitar licks, and counterpointing the vocals, and a great outro to boot as well. I kind of don't think this is too far away from Don't Fear the Reaper. Maybe not sonically, but in that sort of, you think you're listening to something that's a little bit, I don't know, it's got a darkness, it's got an edge about it. And I think they cover, very similar sort of topics like darkness and suicide and mortality and death. This one's just using water and the ocean as a bit of a metaphor. I think it's the best song on the album, or at least one of the best songs on the album.
I agree.
Spy in the House of the Night. This was co-written by Richard Melzer. What do you think of this one?
Yeah, this one's definitely got a more that sort of generic mid 80s hard rock sound to it, but it's definitely not as cheesy as Make Rock Not War. There's some cool organ parts. And again, this song is really tuneful and catchy, so it has that going for it. Um, you know, this has got a bit of an AOR feel to it. And I'm not a big AOR guy, but I like this. AOR done well, I appreciate. So I think this is undeniably commercial, and this song and Dancing in the Ruins, it should have been all over radio in 1985, and you know it wasn't, obviously, because this album barely sold anything. So it's a really good end to side one. And, I think we'll find too that I feel there's a bit of a difference in flavor between side one and side two, but we'll get into that as we go into the second half of the album. But yeah, side one ends well with Spy in the House of the Night.
Yeah, Dana's guitar chops on this song are so sharp. His guitar work is sublime, tasty, and it adds so much flavour. It's an interesting lyric. I think this is about somebody that never experiences life but pretends, if you will, that he has. He's a lot more worldly than he pretends that he actually is. Like there's a lyric that says, never been to Spain or Germany. And it's all smoke and mirrors, spy in the house of the night. Really interesting lyrical ideas. And yeah, I appreciate some of the songs that they bring in. I don't mind if they bring in outside writers if there's something interesting lyrically or if they can add some sort of musical flavour. And this has definitely got a lot of texture and a lot of depth, which, you know, is probably a little bit more than like Make Rock Not War, which I think we both are on the same page is probably the weakest song thus far on the album. But yeah, look, the guitar work on this album, and especially this song, is just so tasty.
Yeah. And I mean, Richard Meltzer is someone who's worked with them, pretty much throughout their whole career up to this point. So, he's not a stranger to writing credits on BOC albums at this point. And he often does write, I think, pretty interesting lyrics for Blue Oyster Cult. So it's always good to see him get a credit.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so we flipped the album over and we've got another anthem rocker sung by Eric Bloom called Beat 'em Up. And Bob Halligan Jr., again, is the writer. And the vocals, as I said, are Eric Bloom. Come With Me, Ready or Not. What do you think of this song?
Yeah. Now, much like Make Rock Not War, the first time I heard this song, I hated it. The difference is I still don't like this song very much. Um, Unlike Make Rock Not War, I just couldn't get past the musical and lyrical cliches on this one. And I couldn't get past that and just enjoy it as dumb fun the way I could with Make Rock Not War. That's a me problem. I understand that, but to me, this is the weakest song on the album. It's annoying. They use every mid 80s production trick in the book on this song, and none of it works as far as I'm concerned. Um, Even the guitar solo, most of the other stuff Buck Dharma plays on this album, I agree with you, is absolutely wonderful. The guitar solo on this doesn't do anything for me at all. Yeah, this is the only song on the album that's just like a no. Like if I was, in the CD playing this on CD, this would be a skip every time.
Yeah, it's a little shouty, it's preachy and kind of annoying and very generic for Blue Oyster Cult. I understand that they probably gravitated to this song because it has a little bit of a pseudo pushback against the establishment type lyric. But yeah, it's not great. And just a little bit of trivia Bob Halligan Jr. wrote Some Heads Are Gonna Roll for Judas Priest off the Screaming for Vengeance album, which is a much better song. So he was sort of known in that era as the hard rock writer. So maybe they were playing to that bit of an audience, but I can't really pretend that it's anything not but a dull and boring song and not great. So I'm not going to really defend this one too much. I'm probably on the same page.
Yeah. I mean, look, we're two-thirds of the way through the album by now, in terms of songs. We're at six songs, 6 of 9. and it's the first, and I would argue, spoiler alert, only stinker on the album. So
Mm.
that's not bad, all things considered, I don't think.
Next one's a real interesting one. When the War Comes, and it's got a voiceover from Howard Stern, the
Yeah.
shock jock radio presenter from New York City. Now, the little bit of trivia was Stern's cousin was married to the guitarist Eric Bloom. So, yeah, what do you think of this song?
Yeah, I mean, it starts off with this really great atmospheric intro, which, always a great way to start a song for me. I was, again, I read in the credits before I even listened to the album that Howard Stern did a voiceover on this song. I was a bit dubious about that. It works. I think it's actually good, but that surprised me a little bit that I
Mm.
actually did like it. Um, the band are definitely getting a bit artier with this song. The only bit that maybe I'm not such a big fan of in this song is the ooga chaka bit. It could have done without that, but that's a minor quibble. Um, it can't quite escape its 1985 production, but it's definitely, to me, this song more reminiscent of earlier Blue Oyster Cult than certainly most of the material on side one. Um, but those synth sort of tubular bells, I mean, that is just such a cliched Yamaha DX7 sound. I've actually got a Yamaha DX7 and I can play that sound on it. And, that was all over music in the mid 80s. So,
Hello, Sting.
um, yeah, exactly. Um, yeah, no, it's a good song. A couple of minor quibbles about the production, but the song itself, really, really strong. I like it a lot.
It's a great song. Joe Bashard is the secret weapon to this band, and I enjoy every Joe Bashard song that he puts on the album. I always look forward to his songs that come on a Blue Oyster Cult. This has a bit of gravitas. It's the epic track on the album. It still has a lot of punch despite the chimey keyboards, and there's that really 80s slap bass that you can hear. It just rolls on. It's kind of a rolling song. Vocals are very anthemic and hooky. And yeah, creator, destroyer, victory, defeat. I mean, the lyrics are very much of our times. It's a bit of a
Mm,
timeless themes as to what's happening in the world now and what was happening in 1985. I think the strength of this song overcome the weaknesses, which are maybe some of the musical choices. So I think
yeah.
this is a winner all round.
Yeah, I
I'll
agree.
I'll forgive the chimey keyboards. Okay, here we go. Another Hands in the Air anthem, Shadow Warrior. Yeah, I was going to say this was written by Eric Bloom and Eric Van Lusbader, who was an author of thriller and fantasy novels, including a ninja novel. So a little bit of background.
Well, there you go. This is an interesting song, and as I go through my sort of analysis of it, I'll get into why I think this is an interesting song. It starts off, the riff at the beginning is a bit of a cliched sort of heavy rock riff. Um, I think the song gets more interesting in the moody section between the verses. And that's really interesting to me. The keys are even a little proggy in that part, you know.
Yes.
So, that's always going to, immediately sort of tickle my prog detector. You know, the second section of this song is great. It's really atmospheric. And then into this sort of double time for this absolutely scorching solo from Buck Dahmer. It's absolutely might be my favorite solo of his on the album. And what I was sort of alluding to at the beginning is I feel like this song is one of those songs where they had like three or four little bits of music and they kind of stitched them together Frankenstein's monster style. Um, it's a bit all over the place, but in the end, I really, really like this song. So, again, an artier song, which, I think that's sort of what I was alluding to when I was talking about side one versus side two. I think side one is very much the radio friendly, you know, attempts at hits and that sort of thing. Whereas I feel like side two, except for Beat 'em Up, the last three songs are definitely Blue Oyster Cult, being more Blue Oyster Culty, if that makes sense.
Yeah, look, I agree with a lot of what you said. Yeah, there's a bit of a hands up in the air type anthem feel. It's a little shouty, but it's on the right side of the fence as far as I'm concerned. And I was thinking of you when I heard that 70s organ sound, the little Baroque ELP keyboard flourish near the bridge.
Yeah.
I was thinking, Bicyclelegs are like that. And then that wild guitar solo just comes out of
Mm,
nowhere. It's tasty and unpredictable. I love Buck's guitar work because he's unpredictable. You do not know
yeah.
where he's going, and that's what truly makes a great guitarist. And I'm just going to go off the script a little bit. I'm horrified when I see a lot of these 100 greatest guitarists polls in Rolling Stone magazine, and Buck's never in there. He should be because
Mm.
his sound is so synonymous with Blue Oyster Cult, and he's just such an interesting guitarist. Anyway, speech
Yeah.
over.
No, no. Look, I agree with you in as much as what attracts me to guitar players is not their technical prowess,
Mm,
it's whether they've got original vocabulary. And I think Buck definitely does have sort of original vocabulary in his playing,
mm.
and that's what I like about him.
And I love the tone. He's got a beautiful tone that sings, and it's distinct, and you distinctly know it's Buck. So
Mm.
yeah, like this song a lot. I think it's a winner. So there we go. We finish up with number 9, which is the finale, Madness to the Method.
Yeah.
Um, Dick Trisman and Rosa did this song, 7 minutes 25 seconds. What do you think of this song?
Yeah. Well, I mean, the last song is also the longest, which is an interesting choice. It's a slower tempo than most of this album, because most of this album's been well up tempo. Although this does get more up tempo as we go along, but it starts off quite slow. The drums on this song, though, the drum sound on this song is horrible. This is the point of the album where I'm really not loving the drum sound in the
Yeah,
production.
I didn't really notice that too much. I mean, you've sort of latched on that, but that can be quite hard for the listener. If there's something that you pick up, and as you're listening to more and more of the album, it becomes the annoyance becomes more accentuated. Was that a little bit for you? Like as it
Yeah,
was going on, it was like
it's
in the
just
back of your mind, and then it's just yeah.
yeah, it by the time I got to this song, it was just sticking out like a sore thumb, and more so on this song than any other on the album, I think. The tempo though doubles up just before the first chorus. It's more energetic in the second verse. Again, we're getting more adventurous. These last three songs are all more adventurous songs than anything on side one. But it still has that kind of radio friendly sound. So, except for the fact that it's 7.5 minutes long, that's not very radio friendly. Well, maybe sort of FM album oriented radio, but there's a very good guitar solo in the middle of this song. Again, we're talking about Buck. He plays a really lovely guitar solo in the middle of this song. I like this song quite a bit. My only quibble with it, apart from the drum sound, is I don't know if it quite justifies being 7.5 minutes long. I think it would have been just as good a song at 5.5 or 6 minutes. But again, that's a nitpick.
Yeah, I like this song a lot. I love Buck's vocals. They're very dreamy, ethereal. There's a lot of melancholy about this song. I think it finishes the album on a sense of intrigue. And the classical piano lines from Tommy Zovanchek, you know, are quite sublime. His keyboards actually go quite chromatic at the end and go a little bit crazy. For some reason, I was listening to the piano lines of this and I was thinking of Eddie Rayner from Split Ends.
Mm,
You know how Eddie can go off?
yeah.
I was. Can you sort of see the similarities? I don't know. He was
Yeah, a
just,
little bit, a little bit.
yeah. Um, Tasty guitar work. Has a nice little gallop rock guitar line midway or three quarters of the way of the song through. But Yeah, the drums, I didn't write it down. It didn't really sort of, maybe it's because I listen to so much of that type of music. I'm kind of immune to it. I'm immune to the reverb and those guitar those drums, because your musical tastes are very rooted in the 70s, and I'm not being derogatory. I'm being sort of respectful that a lot of the music you love is very um, classic rock, and a lot of the music I listen to is in the 80s, and reverb was king, wasn't it? Thank you,
Well,
Phil
yeah.
Collins.
Well, I mean, I do listen to a lot of 80s music too, but a lot of the 80s music I listen to is either new wave music, which didn't tend to use that really heavily gated reverb
Mm,
drum a lot,
mm,
or it's more electronic music, which didn't really use drums at all. It used electronics,
mm.
it used drum machines and that sort of thing. So, yeah, I mean, yeah.
Yeah, a lot of things happening on this song. So,
Mm.
do you think it's a successful song in the end? Do you think it finishes the
Yeah,
album on a
I
good
do
note?
think so. I
Yeah,
do think so. I don't think it's the absolute strongest song on the album, but I think it's a good one. It's 9 songs, 7 of them I really like. One of them I can appreciate as dumb fun, and one of them I just don't really care for. But
yeah.
I think that's a pretty good strike rate, all things considered.
I think so, and I think we both agree that it probably doesn't deserve the negative press that this album has received over a period of time. I'm not a big fan of the album cover. That's very
Mm,
journey-like and sort of cheap science fiction, Club Ninja.
yeah,
Um, you got a bit of a sort of like a transformer, or it's actually a ninja.
that's what I was thinking
Yeah,
too. But
ninja transformer. Very hard to get. Wasn't cheap. I don't know. I haven't seen this album in the wild at record fairs or even CD shops. I can't even remember it coming out in the day. So I think it must have had a very sort of continent specific sort of release. Do you remember this
I
coming out in the day? I don't.
well, not no. I mean, I wasn't really looking for Blue Oyster
Mm,
Cult records back in 1985, but I have seen this record in the wild precisely once, and the record store selling it wanted $80 for it, and I was like, yeah, nah. Um, I would still purchase this album if I could get it for a reasonable price, but I'm not paying $80 for it.
yeah, I didn't pay 80, but what would you give it out of 10? I think I'd give it a 7.
Yeah, I think that's about right too. 7, 7.5.
Yeah.
It's good. It's not great. I mean, bits of it are great, you know.
Mm, yeah.
Um, but does it stand up with the classic sort of 70s Blue Oyster Cult or even that early 80s sort of Fire of Unknown Origin? Maybe
No,
not.
no.
But I still think it's worthy for the most part. Yeah, for
I
sure.
think it is, and it doesn't deserve the negative press. So I think we both agree. It's I think
Yeah.
we've done a fair defense of the album, and it probably doesn't deserve the negative press that it has attracted. But no, seriously, if you want to get the best of Blue Oyster Cult, probably their 70s work or the early 80s is probably where it's at.
Yep.
Alrighty. So thank you, Bicyclelegs. We will do some more in 2025. Please tell us what you think of this album. Good, bad, and indifferent. We love reading your comments. Please check out Bicyclelegs channel. I'll put the link below. Please like and subscribe to Rock Daydream Nation. But repeating myself, one thing's for sure, you'll see me and Bicyclelegs doing more things rock in 2025. All the best and cheers. Good night.
Bye.
See ya.